Yeah, go ahead. I just got my water too. Yes, yes, yes. I need to hear some deals being done. What is Edward talking about? What you talking about, Ed? Y'all crazy. Class. What is going down, class? What's going down? Here we are on a Good Friday. Good Friday. I am excited to be here, class. Make sure you have your documents here. This is Chris Haskins hanging out with attorney Jessica Segal. She went to get some water. Oh, there you go. Hey, Jess.
Hey everybody.
I just like you are like Wonder Woman. You just bam.
I just appear. Yeah.
Today is typically attorney time on Friday with Jessica. Hey, but this Friday we have a master class. So we will be sharing our new joint venture agreement today. For all of you that got it, make sure you download it, and I won't be emailing it out. We finally got a system where you can download it on your own without me having to email it. Thank God. Pull
Great.
out your paperwork. Pull out your paperwork, class. If you don't have it, you better go get it, or you'll just follow along. You don't have to have it, but Jessica's gonna go over every line while we're on this master class. Jessica, tell me how your day's been going so far.
All right. Hold on 1 second. I'm actually just turning the volume off
Just mute it. Yep, just mute
uh,
it.
on my thing. I want to just turn off. There we go. Okay. I had to turn off the video so that I didn't have the feedback.
If you
My
just
day is great.
follow
Anybody?
the questions. Just mute it so it'll run and you can follow the questions.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I was just trying to
All
do. Anybody who ever watches me with you on Fridays knows I have this thing. I love Fridays. I'm always in such a good mood on Fridays. I don't know. It's like this psychological thing, like where I can finally take a deep breath and relax. Like the Monday through Thursday to me is just crazy. I
really?
run from, in meetings with clients, court, and then just mom life, getting kids to sports and all that kind of stuff. So by Friday afternoon,
Mm,
I'm all smiles.
good Lord. I don't imagine. I
All
would
I'm
love.
thinking about is dinner.
Oh, one day I'm just gonna come up there with a camera and just follow you for a day. Is that okay?
Right? I know, right? Oh, I've thought about that. Like my son likes the GoPro, talks about this GoPro. I'm like, if I wore one of those for a whole day, there'd be a new level of appreciation for what we're doing, right? From our kids' point of view. If they saw what their parents actually did all day,
Oh my
oh my
Lord.
God.
That'd be something.
Yeah, they don't know. They're just like, oh, she goes to work and then money appears.
Yeah, where's your boss? Where's your boss?
Right.
My daughters are like, Chris, I want to meet your boss. I'm like, okay. All right,
Yeah. You're
class.
looking at them. That's what you say.
Yeah, I don't. They're not ready yet. Because anyway, class. Thank you for joining us. You know, my mission, my ministry is to raise your financial literacy through real estate investing and entrepreneurship. If you don't have these documents today, we're gonna. This is our partnership master class. If you don't have them, just go to the video description, click the button, and download them. There is a small fee before Jessica's time. Obviously, she gets paid. I don't even want to tell you how much she charges to do this, but she's making it affordable for you because you're a member of the Roundup family. So, Jessica, everybody hit the thumbs up for thank you.
Thank you. I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to be part of the family.
Yeah. Jessica, let's start with, I think, what did we say? We were going to just start with joint venture partnership. Where did you think we should
Yes.
start?
So, I thought I'd start really with the very basic concept of the difference between a joint venture and a partnership, because I know people throw those words around
Hmm.
sort of loosely, and legally they do have different meanings. So, a joint venture and the document we're going over today is nothing more than a contract. It is a written agreement that sets out who's responsible for what and how are we going to sort out the profit or the responsibility in our endeavor.
Hmm.
It is not a legal entity. You are not getting a new tax ID number for it. You are not reporting taxes as a joint venture, things like that. Everything is still your business and your business entity. A partnership in the truest sense is a legal entity. So it's when two people come together, you register with the state as a partnership. You have certain liability protections as a partnership. You have your own tax ID number, and the income of the partnership is reported as the business. That's not what we're talking about today. So you don't have to necessarily merge your whole life with somebody to do a JV agreement. It's temporary, it's for a limited purpose. You can have multiple joint venture agreements going on with multiple different people and look at it as nothing more than your agreement put in writing. And I'm very passionate about preventive planning, prevention, education. So the bulk of my 20 years as an attorney, honestly, has been as a litigation attorney.
Mm.
And I'm typically brought in after the fact to try and fix a mess or a fight because they didn't have things in writing.
For our viewers that don't know what litigation is, just break it down real quick, Jay.
Sure. So that basically means court action. So think lots of money, lots of time, lawyers in court before the judge trying to get a ruling in their favor. Every
Sounds
single
expensive.
time you step foot in a courtroom, it's money. Not just for the lawyer. The court itself has filing fees and all kinds of requirements separate and apart from maybe the attorney's time, the depositions, requesting certified copies of documents from the town assessor or the zoning. There's all different rules and requirements for court. So when you use that joint venture agreement, you're basically putting out in writing the terms that you're agreeing to, so there's no mistake later on to how much money each person is supposed to get or who's responsible for what task. And it will save you just, that few minutes of time sitting down, brainstorming, getting it down before you start will save you thousands and thousands of dollars later on. Going to court to fight about something is should be the last resort. So I'll say this too, typically you're going to go to an attorney to draft these documents. That's, an expense too. So by having this document and now they get to basically reuse it, so we're going to go through it step by step, see what's valuable, how you can change it for each deal and how to reuse it. Nice. And this basically protects you. I mean, look, every situation could have a communication breakdown, or maybe you didn't put something in the agreement that you never thought of before. But for the most part, this is a good standard document to get you started. And the more deals you do, the more you can tweak the document, add to it, change it as your business grows.
Nice.
Yeah. And I'm always here, to answer questions along the way.
Yeah, we're going to go over class in our partnership master class. We're going to go over the joint venture agreement from top to bottom. It'll take us about 30 minutes. And then we'll do some Q&A for anybody that has questions. If you do not have the document, this video will not get replayed. You can download the docs later, but you will not have the training that goes along. It won't come with it. It will be an extra cost for that. But this video will not be replayed on my channel, class. Chris Monroe, thank you for your love offering. Jessica, before we get into it, I got to ask you, just give us a snapshot of what happens when you don't have stuff in place. I know you literally just went through this and then you set up one go.
Yeah. So this played out literally in real life, it was actually last month at this point. Romantic partners buy a piece of property as an investment. They have nothing in writing because they're a happy couple and they're thinking they're going to be together forever. And they're not really documenting well who's responsible for what tasks, how much money is being spent on different things. And or for that matter, when the property is going to be sold, who gets what percentage, right? Because as you know, there's typically a money person and a physical labor person. And just because you didn't put in any money doesn't mean you don't have value, right? So your physical tasks are value. So what is the percentage of profit you should get for that value, right?
Mhm.
All of that should be agreed to ahead of time. So they did not agree in ahead of time to anything. There's nothing in writing. And once there was a falling out in the personal relationship, there was no having a
Mm.
reasonable discussion. Emotion got involved, and there was no way to just amicably resolve it with fair market value and splitting it 50-50 and all the things that should normally happen. So because this particular party, in this case, it was the woman, but it could be anybody, she was just so angry and emotionally invested
Could be a
in their
man too.
relationship,
Could be two men. I don't know.
right? It could be anybody. She just wouldn't really take a position that was like, that was separate from the emotion. You
Hmm.
have to put your emotion aside and say, this is a business investment.
Yep.
This is not about my personal relationship.
Hmm.
She would not agree to split the proceeds. She, even though he had actually laid out all the money, she didn't want him to make a dime in profit.
Mm.
She was fighting it. She was forging documents in the town. She was
Oh,
lying to people about how it was listed. I mean, it
nasty.
was a lot of deception. And ultimately, we had to go to court. We
Mm.
had to file what's called a partition action.
Mm.
And um, which costs thousands and thousands of dollars. And what a partition action is, the court basically decides what's
Nasty.
the value of the property and how much profit are you entitled from the sale. You
Mm.
lose all ability to control that anymore. The
Mm.
court directs who the real estate agent is going to be. Basically the court directs almost like a monitor to make sure that the appraisal is done properly, and all of these things add up in cost. And by the time the clients are done, they'll have spent well over $10,000
Mm.
each, I have no doubt,
So we can,
on what could have been pure profit for them.
yeah, that could have been the profit in their pockets.
Right, right. And so we, especially spending an entire day, an entire 8-hour day in depositions, you can imagine how much that costs.
Yeah. Oh my lord. So a few
So,
dollars set it up front when everybody's happy.
absolutely. And this, when we were going through creating this document, part of my process is thinking about all these cases that I've had that went sideways. And so what can we put in this document so that we prevent that from happening? So in the document, you're getting really all of my sort of life experience from the courtroom.
Nice. That is so
Yeah.
cool. So we're getting. I love it when you can take just ideas from an expert and put it in our. Let's do this. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm definitely ready. And the other thing I'll just say also is don't be intimidated by forming joint ventures, okay? Even if it's in its most basic form, you can think of using this agreement. Let's say you hire a mentor even. Maybe it's not even necessarily a buy and hold or a fix and flip. Maybe it's somebody agreeing to mentor you through the process, and you're going to give them a percentage of the profit when you finally do a wholesale deal or something. So you can use these documents even for the most basic transaction. You can use it for, maybe you have a handyman that is agreeing to work on certain projects in exchange for different things, or different payment, or in and different ways of being paid depending on the task, right? So
Mhm.
for each different kind of person, you can use this agreement. It's
Wow.
not only buying a house or a wholesale deal or a rehab. You can use it for every aspect of your business.
Nice. Nice. And I just want my roundup family to know that I have paperwork. Every person you see me do business with, every one of them, we have something in writing. It's nothing personal. It has
Right.
nothing to do with that. Because I
Yeah.
know.
And I would say this, especially when it's somebody you're friendly with or close with, family members, the document is even more important because that takes that like friendship out of the equation. It's a business deal, right? So that nobody gets taken advantage of because you're family or friends.
Well, my thing, even that, Jay, and for me to go a little further, it's kind of like for me, it's like I don't want you to, like, if I might say it's hot in here, but hot to somebody might be 80 degrees, but the other person might be 90 degrees. So I just want to
Right.
know 80 degrees is what we're saying is going to be hot, so
Yeah,
it's no
exactly.
problem.
I completely agree. So that there's no miscommunication, no speculation, well, I assumed, right? That's the worst situation in business when somebody assumes something.
Oh, yeah, that is the word. Let's do this. So let's start from the top, Jay.
Okay, so looking at the very top, I want to point out from its most basic point, we have a date. Okay, the document is dated.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you'll notice on the very last page, you're dating it and notarizing it when you sign it.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Oh, the last
Now,
page.
those
Okay.
two dates could be the same day. It may be that they're both dated the same day.
Mm-hmm.
But if, let's say, hypothetically, you entered into this agreement like a month ago, but you didn't put it down on paper yet. If you wanted to, you could make the date of the document, the date that you're saying the agreement is in place one day. Maybe it's 30 days earlier, but you'll sign it and date it the day you physically are signing it together and notarizing it.
I'll flash it
So,
up real quick for the class. You can go ahead, Jay. I'm gonna just flash it. I'm gonna give him just like a
sure.
quick flash. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what we're starting with. You're going to put the date in that it becomes effective, your agreement.
Gotcha.
And you're basically going to list yourself as party one,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to put your business address. Do not use your home address. Okay. This document hopefully sits in a drawer and you never need it. But in the event of a dispute, it's going to be used as an exhibit in the court proceeding.
Okay.
Okay. So it's a public court document. You don't necessarily want your home address in this public court document. So
Gotcha.
use your business address, use your PO box, your LLC address, whatever it is.
Okay.
If you don't have any other address, then then okay. But I'll tell you, if you're running a business, you should have a business address, even if it's
Yes.
just a box.
PO box, and you can use that for a suite. Jay, I might lose you, but if you want to keep, I might lose you. I'm having a little problems with my
Okay.
screen share, but you can keep rolling down.
Okay. So you're going to put your name in there, and it could, if you're a business entity like an LLC, you're going to put that in there. If you're a land trust or you're a grantor trust or whatever,
Yeah.
whoever is the party to this agreement, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
put that as partner one, and then whoever you're entering into the agreement is going to be partner two, and they'll provide their business address. Okay. Then we're going to go down to the purpose. What is the purpose of this agreement? And you're going to fill that in. And every time you have a new business venture, you're going to use this form and just edit it, amend it, whatever it is. So if you were entering into a fix and flip with somebody, then that's what you're going to write there. If you're doing a buy and hold, a rental property, you're going to write that in there. Maybe you're a wholesale deal, a subject to. Maybe somebody's just doing private money for you. Whatever it is, you're going to put that as the purpose. So you're identifying, this is why we're entering into an agreement. And as basic as that sounds, it's so that everybody understands the purpose of why you're doing business and what the role is for each person. Okay, why are we entering into this agreement? So I'm going to say this, Chris, on my screen you're frozen, so I'm just going to keep going. Going down to number 2 is the address of the property, the deal. Okay, so if you're fixing and flipping, buying, holding, wholesaling, whatever it is, you're going to use the address, the street address of that property. And then it's always helpful to use the legal description, like the section, block, and lot number. That way there's no miscommunication as to exactly what parcel is involved. Okay, so there we are, you're back. Missed you.
That's
All
the
right.
purpose. Did you? I lost your purpose. Did you keep going?
I kept going, so I covered purpose.
Gotcha.
And I moved on to address.
Let's do it.
Okay, so I was explaining that in addition to the street address, we both recommend putting the section, block, and lot on there off the tax parcel so that there's no miscommunication as to what property we're talking about.
There you go.
In some parts of the country, the 911 street address could be slightly different than the section, block, and lot number, so we always use both. Now we're going to talk about term.
All right.
And so this is really important because again, you're limiting your interaction with this person. Okay. This is purely a contract for a very specific purpose. This is not a long-term, like I said, this is not a partnership agreement where you're merging as one entity. So what is the limited purpose of this contract? And typically it's going to be until the property is purchased or sold, right? So if it's a fix and flip, the term is going to be until the property is sold. If it's a wholesale agreement, it's going to be until it's turned over. Or if it's a buy and hold, again, until the property is sold. Now, you can limit the term of the contract. Let's say, you're doing a flip and you're concerned that you only want to be involved for a maximum of 3 years. It should not take more than 3 years to rehab and flip this property. After that, I'm out. I want to sell my interest to somebody else if we can't get this accomplished. So you can choose to limit it. And if you have to know your market, if your market is really hot and you think, hey, we're going to flip this, no problem, or I'm going to want to keep it for 30 years, factor that into your term.
Gotcha.
And again, this is sort of where, the coaching and the follow-up questions can come in as deals come up. Maybe you do need some guidance on how long your term should be. So they can always come back to you for that. But document at some basic level the term of this agreement so you're not stuck in it any longer than you want to be.
Yep, I've been there.
Yeah. And I'll ask you, Chris, like for wholesaling, do you ever put like term limit on there, or do you typically just do until the the property is turned over?
Turned over. Yeah, just when it's turned over, or can't. Obviously, hopefully we could find a buyer, but if you can't find the buyer, you have to renegotiate it. Hey.
Okay.
So yeah, till the property is sold, then it's over.
Okay. So moving on to I would say the real meat of the document will be Section 4 contribution. Okay. This is the critical part of the document because, as the case that I was involved with just showed, if you don't have a clear document showing how much money you put into the deal and exactly who's responsible for paying what expenses, it gets very difficult later on when there's a falling out to determine profit and loss. Okay. And one of the cases that I dealt with was a family situation. So that's even harder because now there's also a family falling out. And because it was family, they trusted that everything would be done properly. And they didn't have an agreement. They each had a different view of what the agreement was.
Wow.
Okay. And again,
that's not unusual though, Jessica. I mean, people talk, you just say.
That's my business, really. That's the heart of my business every day.
That's where you live, huh?
Assuming things. People just figuring it'll all work out, or they must think the same way I do. Okay. So contribution.
Let's do it.
And typically, and Chris, you can talk to this, typically you have a money person and sort of like a hands-on person, but it doesn't have to be that way. So if, whatever amount of money you're contributing, you're going to put on the document. So how much money is P1 putting towards acquisition, so buying the property and the closing? Part of that's going to be dependent on the actual cost of the deal, right? In terms of how much is this property listed for? And then you figure out how much money are we each putting in. And it's okay if one person puts all the money in. It doesn't have to be any one thing. Be whatever you want it to be.
Yes.
But you want to document if you put in, 0, then that's what should be listed there. If you put in $10, then that's what's listed. If you put in 150,000, that's what's listed there.
Very important.
So,
then so what are we doing? What are we doing on the left side here, Jay? Are we initialing this? What on the columns where we got P1 and P2?
So I would think it's like a check mark, an X, initials, whatever you want to do.
All right.
So in terms of, then you're going to document, okay, if we're flipping this, or we're going to hold it as a rental property, is there a rehab cost? Is there, cost for construction and fixing it. And maybe it's a small budget, maybe it's just some cosmetic paint and things like that, but maybe it's a complete gut job. Whatever your scope of work is, you're going to document how much each person, if anything, is contributing.
Gotcha.
And now I'll say this is a good time to also mention, we've set this up for 2 people. Okay. But when they buy the document, it's a Word document. They can edit it. If you have 3 people involved, so you add in an extra column, however many people are involved, you just add them to the document.
Gotcha.
So then here's where it's important, you have things like you may not think of: real estate taxes, hazard insurance, utilities. Like, okay, so while we're rehabbing this property, somebody's going to have to pay the gas and electric bill, right? So we have light on while we work. We need maybe the water on so we can do, whatever needs to be done. There's got to be garbage collection, whatever it is. Who's exactly paying for that? And on this contribution part, we're not talking about physically going to pay the taxes yet. We're talking about who's the money behind it.
That's what I put. Yeah.
Okay, contribution equals money. Who's gonna who's contributing to the lending? Okay, whether it be private money, a traditional bank, whatever it is,
money. Yeah.
actually paying your monthly fee for this loan.
The loan interest payments.
Yeah, and if it's nothing, then it's nothing. But if it's whatever it is, who's going to pay for it?
Who's going to make that
and how
payment?
much? Right. And then here's something that you actually, Chris, you brought up from your experience. There's always an overage. Okay, in my world, I call it contingency budget.
Mm-hmm.
But it can be referred to as an overage, or basically, let's say you factor in $10,000 for a roof repair. But when they're up, they're doing it. It turns out there's more involved. And you know what? The skylight needs to be replaced because it's leaking. So it's actually going to cost you $3,000 more. It's going to cost you $13,000. So who's going to cover those guaranteed overages that typically happen in any rehab project?
Well, what happened in my experience was like we got to the end of the budget and we're looking at each other like, I don't know.
What now?
Nobody know what we do, right? What do you do now?
Right. And and this is exactly how things break down. Because one person will turn around and say, well, I told you I only had X amount for this deal. I don't have any more money. Wow. And then it turns out where they're like, hey, well, what did you do with all this money? Maybe you should have gotten a better bid from this contractor. And then that's when the fighting starts. Like, it's your fault that we ran out of money. Mm-hmm. And I want to go back real quick to the hazard insurance cost on there, because we've said there's going to be the premium everybody expects, and then if you end up having a claim, you're going to have your deductible. But then also think about again the overages. If your coverage is for, let's say, the fair market value or whatever, let's say your coverage is for 150. And the property burns to the ground in the middle of the rehab, and someone's injured and they file a claim against you for $300,000, which in today's day and age is not very difficult to achieve. You spend a couple of nights in the hospital, you need surgery, whatever, there's your $300 in a heartbeat.
Yep.
So the insurance coverage for the $150,000 is great, but above that, you have what's called excess coverage. You're going to have to hire your own attorney to defend you in what's called this excess coverage claim. That's above your insurance premium. So who's going to pay for that?
You got that down here.
Yep, and that's included. Now, keep in mind, a lot of these things are worst case scenario and they probably never come up. But the whole purpose behind this document is planning for the worst case scenario.
I love it. I love it. And they get the last 3 lines down here. They can add whatever they want, Jay.
Yes. So then we added some blank lines at the bottom for whatever comes up specific to your project. Mm-hmm. If there's an unusual circumstance or there's something creative and you want to make sure you have it in writing, that's where you add it.
Nice.
Okay. So We're going to move on to the second page. And this is the part that everybody loves. This is the profit part. So keeping in mind what you agreed to lay out financially from the first page, right? So you're going to put what is each person's contribution, and based upon those contributions, what percentage of the profit, and we call that gain, when you sell the property, do you get to keep? Now, most of the time you're going to be dealing with 50-50, right? However, that's not always the case. Maybe you're paying somebody to just mentor you through this project and you're going to give them 30% of the profit. So whatever. So then it's, 70-30. Whatever the case may be, whatever your agreement is, you're going to fill in that. And so there's no question what percentage of profit. And I'll tell you, this came up with one client where party one agreed to put up all of the money for the entire project, no matter how much it was. And party two was the construction worker and was going to handle all of the labor in this rehab. And their verbal agreement was, then we split the profit 50-50 on the sale of the house.
Nice.
They had
That's a
nothing
verbal
in
agreement, you said.
right? Yes, they had nothing in writing. It turns out that the construction budget was a little bit more than I think the money person expected, and so they weren't going to get much profit, right?
It always is.
When they figured out they're not going to make much profit, they decided they wanted all of the profit. And they didn't
put up
want
all the money.
They put up all the money. Why shouldn't I get all the profit?
Yeah.
So the person who did the 60 days worth of physical labor and paying the subcontractors out of his own pocket and buying supplies from Home Depot and all of that was basically like, what do you mean I get nothing? And, that's going to be resolved in court eventually for even more money because they didn't put it in writing.
Nasty.
So
we've got a specific class. We got a specific line here for the percentage of the gain. I wanted that to be no question.
Right. It should be very clear. And it doesn't matter how much money you put down. It's totally separate.
Yeah.
Even if you put 100% of the money in, you may agree to only take 50% of the profit. Gotcha. They're separate things. Okay. And this is important to protect yourself, especially if you're the labor person. Yeah. Right? If you're actually putting in your time every day and your sweat equity every day, you better be making some of the profit. And the person who's doing the money, that's a critical component, and they get their fee for that. That's the cost of doing business. But that doesn't mean that the labor person doesn't get any profit. And listen, you can work it out however. Maybe you're only getting 40% of the profit because you're not the money person. And maybe the money person is more important in this deal. But then the next time you would do a deal and now you've got some money in your pocket, it's a little bit more even. Then the next deal, maybe you're 50-50. So it's always going to be fluid and change. Yep.
There is no one way to do this, is what you're saying?
Right.
Gotcha.
So if there's nothing else on that, Chris, I'll move on to liability.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So again, this is a little slightly repetitive to the contribution, but we wanted it to be a separate heading because it's so critical. Not only the cost, but make sure you're in agreement as to what type of insurance you're getting for the property, liability-wise. Like, what should the premium coverage be? Or, I mean, not the premium. What should the policy limit be? How much coverage are we getting? Make sure that's very clear because everybody has different comfort zones. I'm a very conservative person. I overpay for insurance. I know I do it. But as an attorney and a litigator, I'd much rather have more coverage than not enough. Okay. Gotcha. So everybody's different. Some people would rather roll the dice and take the risk, and they're more comfortable with less insurance coverage. It's totally up to you, but be clear in your agreement. And then, so there's no confusion and no deception, the declaration page of that policy should be attached to this JV agreement.
Gotcha.
Full disclosure, this is what we have. so that you're not worrying about somebody saying to you, oh no, I'll get the policy and I'll make it for X amount of dollars, and then they actually don't.
Mm.
Because I've seen that happen too.
Oh my Lord. Well, Jessica, let me ask you, we put here that insurance should be the amount of replacement value. Is that what everybody gets, or you're saying you get more than that?
So it really does depend, to be honest, on the condition of the property you're buying.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if it's a full gut rehab, then yeah, you don't need, you just need replacement, right? Because you know
Yes.
you're already gutting it. But
Yes.
if this house is like in really good condition and you're just doing some cosmetic repairs, you're going to want more coverage than that. You know, maybe
Okay.
there's some real value in the property beyond just that purchase
Destruction.
price.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then also, I mean, there's always the potential we've talked about, like umbrella policies too. Like if you're taking on a project that's very high risk, where somebody could get injured, you know, you may want for that one project maybe some, you know, extra coverage, a
Gotcha.
liability policy.
Gotcha.
Okay, and I'll say this, that's also separate from like a worker's comp injury. Like if a subcontractor, you know, gets injured, you know, he has his own, you know, workers' comp or insurance and stuff. That's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about you as owner of this property now,
Gotcha.
protecting your asset.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You know, or some random person, you know, getting hurt on the property.
Gotcha. Not somebody that's working, a contractor.
Right.
All right.
Right.
Or if the shit burns down. For me, my thing is this: every time I buy a house, I'm like, it's gonna burn down tomorrow. That's I
Mhm.
always have that mindset. I mean, all my houses, I'm like, I need to make sure that it's covered the day I'm in it. You know.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, because we saw even just from the news this week, right? Horrific fires happen, unfortunately. You know, with electrical fires and different things, right?
Okay. Okay.
Right? What was it in Paris? The church, they determined that it was
I
an electrical fire that started it.
really.
I think. Yes.
Wow. I did not know that. I didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
terrible.
Okay.
Good one.
So next critical part: physical duties of the parties. So number 7.
Duties.
This is
Duties.
another area ripe for what I call litigation, right? Fighting, disagreements. You want to be very clear who is physically responsible for the task. And so let's say one person agreed, okay, I'm going to lay out the $8,000 for property taxes over the course of this project.
Mm-hmm.
But who is physically going to mail the check to the tax assessor or physically drop off the check? And I know that sounds silly to say, but this is coming from my life experience. One person assumes, oh, well, he said he's paying the taxes, so I'm going to assume he's going to physically go pay them.
Mm-hmm.
And the person who's laying out the money is like, hey, listen, I'm fronting all this money. I'm not doing these menial tasks. You go take care of the check.
Wow.
Right? There's this just sort of just basic misunderstanding with people.
The little
So
things.
that's on here. Who is physically sending out the checks for the taxes, the utilities, the insurance, things like that?
Gotcha.
Is one or both of you going to be on site daily managing the construction project if you're doing a fix and flip or even a you know, buy and hold, whatever it is?
Mm-hmm.
If it's a wholesale, are you going to physically be there showing the property, right?
Gotcha. Yep.
So who's actually going to get the dumpster, hire the subcontractors, you know, be there to get the permits, be present for inspections with the town, all of the things that go into the day-to-day project management.
Material delivery is a big one for me because I'm not gonna
Yes.
sit there and wait for the stuff to get there. I want the business partner that's the active business partner to go do that.
Yes, exactly, right? And that's where this, what we call like our sweat equity value comes in. Okay, each
Mm-hmm.
of these tasks is really important to the project. And it's okay to delegate them, but at least outline who's going to be in charge of it so that
Gotcha.
if I'm in charge of the day-to-day like general like contractor and make sure everything's running smoothly, it doesn't mean I can't delegate certain things to my staff. It just means that I'm going to make sure these things get taken care of.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
And, we're agreeing in writing, especially when it comes to money. We're going to be accountable to each other at a minimum every 30 days.
Gotcha.
Open disclosure of financials. We're going to keep track of receipts. We're going to keep track of when people are paid. And this comes up a lot with cash, payments. So we all know in the industry, a lot of people will ask for cash payment, or maybe you get a better deal with cash payment. As a business owner, you're going to document what you paid this contractor. It's not your responsibility to know whether or not the contractor is reporting it on their taxes. That's not your issue.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be able to show. So maybe he doesn't want a receipt, but you want to document. On this date, I paid this person X amount of dollars cash. Okay, it's, when you're paying by check, credit card, Venmo, whatever, there's a paper trail. If you're giving somebody cash, make sure you are keeping good bookkeeping record of that.
Mm-hmm.
So that you can be held accountable to your joint venture partner.
Yeah, you better. Yeah.
Yeah,
You can go ahead and cover. My housekeeper just pulled up. I'll be right back. You can go ahead and move on to.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Insurance.
Okay, and then also thinking about when it comes to, if you're doing a fix and flip or a wholesale or whatever, if you do have a real estate broker involved, if you have an appraiser involved, if somebody has to come to the property, who's going to meet them there? Who's responsible for that? So there is a place on there for you to check off who's doing those things. And it's okay if you're both going to be responsible for it, but if you're not, document who's doing what. And that will really help hold people accountable if a task isn't completed and it causes a problem down the line. So we're going to move on to Section 8, and we call that insurance. And this is different than hazard insurance. This is what we call key man insurance, okay? And it's certainly not required, but if you're involved in the project and you're concerned, if my other joint venture partner were to die or be injured or could no longer participate, those are good guard dogs. And I think they're really tiny dogs too that are barking that loud. You're going to want to make sure that that person's financial contribution is covered. Okay, so you can talk to your insurance agent about a product called Key Man Insurance. Some people have life insurance, and that's okay. It's certainly not required. But I would at least have a conversation with your joint venture partner about whether or not you need some sort of insurance coverage in the event one of you can no longer physically participate in this project. And I'm going to take 1 second to see. I'm going to take a second to see if there are any other comments. Oh, that's okay. I said you got some fierce guard dogs. I'm going to take a second to see if there are any.
They weigh like 10 pounds each. Not even 8 pounds.
Okay. I was just looking to see if there was any questions before I go on.
A whole bunch of them over there. We'll get to them at the end. We'll be doing that all day.
Okay, so I'll wait on that. So I'm up to non-disclosure.
Let's do it.
So I touched on briefly the Key Man Insurance.
Key Man Insurance. You just hit me.
I did, and I just mentioned that that's an option, not a requirement. But certainly, depending on the level of money involved on a project, you may want to require some sort of coverage if the other person can no longer, contribute to the property.
I want some insurance on you. What if you die? I got all the money. You managing the property. Shit, I want my money. I need my money. I need.
Right. Absolutely. So Jumping now to non-disclosure of
Yep.
confidential information, okay? This is something that most people don't think about, but again, it comes up often in my world. If you're in business together for this deal, you're going to share who maybe the members of the LLC are, who the trustee is on a, or the real owner is behind a land trust, maybe some tax information that you're sharing for the accounting on this deal. You want to make sure that they're agreeing in writing, not to reveal. And you specifically, Chris, have done so many episodes on staying anonymous, hiding true ownership, the effort involved to keep that private. So
Right.
you don't want somebody that maybe you've never worked with before on this, now in this joint venture agreement, to be blasting all your information out on social media or in documents or whatever it may be. You don't necessarily want the person who's ultimately buying the house to know you're the seller.
No way.
People create business entities for a reason.
That's right.
So we put in this paragraph to protect you. Now, we kind of glossed over the fact that the reason we do this document is to give you legal rights. Okay, so if somebody discloses your personal information, you can, and you have damage from that, you bring what's called a breach of contract claim. So if your joint venture partner reveals this information to you and it has negative consequence to you, you can sue them for breach of contract for X amount of dollars.
Nice.
And that's the whole reason we're creating this document, is so that we're putting in writing, I take my privacy seriously. I don't want it revealed. And if you do, I can go after you financially for that.
I like that. Because we're gonna do what we say, right? We always
Right,
know we're gonna do. We're gonna say we're gonna do what we say to do.
right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And especially the more deals you do, the more risk you have,
Mhm.
or the more property you hold, the more assets you have, the more you're a target for lawsuits. So it's
That's
even
right.
more important that your personal information isn't disclosed.
And I'm gonna
And
make
I'll
sure.
tell you this, when people are angry with you, they do nasty stuff. And
Oh man.
so, especially when you're fighting over money, the last thing you want is this person to put your home address on Facebook and
Oh
your
wow.
EIN and all your information on there, right?
Wow. I didn't think about that. Yeah. EIN number. I'm gonna make sure you got beneficiaries, trustees, all that's in here, class. So
Yes,
I don't want your boy stuff out there.
right. Okay, so this other, paragraph 10,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it sounds like a lot, but I'll tell you, we kept it short. The document is 3 pages, so we've covered only the important stuff in there. I
Yeah.
tried to limit all the unnecessary legalese.
It was originally 45 pages, class, because
It
Jessica had this to
really
me
was.
before.
I had to whittle it down.
So
Um,
we.
so we've got the best key parts in here.
All right.
Okay, so paragraph 10 is change in partners. Now,
Mm-hmm.
in our real estate investment world, we are all about the assignment, right? We want to be able to assign our interest in any deal and contract and be
Hey
able
man,
to
want to
move
sell it?
freely, right? Exactly. But what you want to make sure is that your joint venture partner is not selling out to somebody that you didn't agree to work with without your permission. So we're putting in this contract, you cannot assign your interest in this contract without written permission of the other partner.
Gotcha.
And equally important, if your joint venture partner becomes incapacitated or dead, who do you give permission to step in and take over? So there's 2 parts there. One, if I'm alive and well, you can't just, sell me off to another partner. Okay, I have to agree to that. And then 2, if I'm incapacitated or dead, who do I say can legally step in and finish out this deal with you? So we've got a spot in there for both.
I like that.
And I've mentioned in other videos we do the importance of a power of attorney. I mean, I'm really big into estate planning. That's a big bulk of my practice too. And so this is an important way to say, listen, I have a lot of money on the line, and if I can't hold up my end of the bargain, I've designated this person to step in and follow through on this deal so that we both
Gotcha.
get paid.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Let me
And
touch.
that's,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
that's in addition to whatever power of attorney they may have separately with that person they're designating. This document is just saying, hey partner, I'm agreeing that this person can step in to finish this deal if I'm in a coma, if I've died, whatever the case may be.
Think if I did take it, I just call it getting taken out of the equation.
Yeah, that works too.
I see some people in the class. You can download the documents right in the video description class. If you need to download it real quickly, you can finish looking at it and get your questions answered by a licensed
Yeah, I
attorney.
would encourage you to download it now so that if you have questions, we do it right now.
Yes.
It's really
Now.
helpful to have the document in front of you.
The power of now. Now, Jessica. I'm like, that's my thing. Right now. Let's do it right now. Get it over with.
Today's the day.
Yeah. So
Okay.
finish up. I'll cut you off. You're talking about incapacitated and we're going to get into the broker, how they're going to
Yeah, I
liquidate.
mean, so listen, here's the reality also. I mean, I live in a world, again, this is my world, where accidents and tragedy happen every day, and trying to legally plan for that after the emergency happens is brutal. You want to have that plan in place before the unexpected. The prevention, the power of prevention. Have your estate planning documents in place, have your contracts in place before, so that if you are struck by a car, on your way to the job site,
Happen.
and you're not going to be able to work for 6 months,
Happen.
we already have an understanding. My brother can step in and do this for me. I'm giving him authorization,
And their phone
whatever.
number is right on the paper. All you do is go
Right.
to your paper and give them a call.
Right. And it's really important that you put their contact information on there, phone number, email, whatever you want, so that JV partner does not have to then figure out and talk to 8 family members of yours to figure out, or your secretary, who do we go to?
What do I do? What do I do now?
Right.
Yeah, what do we do?
Okay.
Question marks. For Jessica, for me, I'm like, I just don't like question marks. So if you put it all here, it's no question.
That's right. And you're taking that from over your decade in experience, right? Like, so Chris, you and I, we're coming from having lived through all of the mistakes, right? So the people watching now are getting the benefit of learning from our mistakes.
Wow, I never thought about that. So you got over 20 years. I got since 2004. What is that? Almost 40. I mean, good gracious.
Yeah, right? Okay, so the last part of the contract is dispute resolution. So I threw that in there as an important conversation piece, okay? Litigation, fighting it out in court, paying for attorneys is quite honestly a waste of money. I mean, you're paying hourly. So I put in there a dispute resolution clause that you're both agreeing before we take on the expense of an attorney and court, we're going to use an arbitrator or a neutral mediator. And maybe it's a lawyer, but it doesn't have to be. Anybody that is a neutral person to take the emotion and the anger out of the equation and try and resolve what we're disagreeing about. And so you're basically signing off that we're going to try that first. We're agreeing. We're not going to just run to court. We have to try and mediate or arbitrate. Now, arbitration could be 2 ways. There's binding and non-binding. So binding arbitration means we're agreeing we're never going to court. Whatever the arbitrator decides is how we're resolving this. We're agreeing that's what we're doing. Non-binding arbitration is we're just going to use this neutral third person to suggest, after hearing both our sides, the best way to resolve it. We can choose to sign off on it, or we could say no thanks and go to court. So you can decide based upon your experience with this particular joint venture partner, what kind of agreement you want to enter into.
Nice.
Do you want to require non-binding, binding arbitration, a mediator? How are we going to resolve our disputes?
Do they have to pick one of these on this agreement, Jay? So you're the expert on that.
Yeah, I mean, I recommend you do ahead of time. You don't have to.
I'm saying, okay, we've got a Blake. I mean, on our agreement here, Do they have to circle one of the two? Is that what we wanted them to
No,
do?
so the way we wrote it up, or the way, we put in there that we're agreeing that if we can't amicably resolve it amongst each other, partner one and partner two,
Hmm.
we're going to use a mediator,
Mediator first.
or an attorney, a neutral person,
Gotcha.
to try and resolve this.
Gotcha.
And we'll only have further court action if we can't resolve it. So
Right.
I wrote it up that you are leaving open the option to go to court.
Option. Yeah. Okay. So it
Right?
saves money then.
Yeah. And then you're obviously we left a blank for the state that you're in. You want to specify whose state rules apply. And this is going to come up if you're in a border area, right? If where I live in New York, I have New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, all like very close. I could put 1 foot in each state and stand where I am, right? So we want to agree up front whose state law is gonna be used, and which state court are we going to go into if we have a falling out.
Gotcha.
And this
Wow.
is especially important if, let's say I find a mentor in Nevada, and he's going to mentor me virtually on this fix and flip that I'm doing. If we have some sort of falling out, I want to make sure that we're resolving it in New York. So me, the little guy, doesn't have to fly to Nevada to deal with this, because then I
Gotcha.
lose all upper hand. So I can't afford to fly to Nevada every time the case is on in court.
Yeah. Nice. Nice.
And then you're going to sign it and date it and get it notarized.
This is the
And
key.
this is, very important. Have your ID handy and find a notary.
I'm gonna get into this class. I didn't talk to you about why I wanted to make sure that, Jay, but I saw a question come up. Somebody, I want to get into this notary. It's so important. Good gracious.
All right. So why don't you explain that? Because I'm sort of finished at this point.
That's right. You're good. I'm gonna tell you what happened to me. I did a partnership. I mean, I'm always doing them. So the partnership that, let me rewind. Joint venture.
Yeah.
I don't want to misconstrue what you're listening to, class. So I saw somebody. What was it, dude? Let me find him. I gotta talk to this guy. Off the grid with a kid. He mentioned I'm gonna come back to you off the grid also, but your partner, once you get this thing notarized, class, you can actually record it against the house. You can
Yeah.
record it at the courthouse so it comes up on the title search. I had to when I did it because I try to record everything because I don't want no problems. I've seen too much. Many people, I've seen too much loss in my life. So once you record this thing, when they do the title search, the lender's going to say, "Hey, we need." Matter of fact, what happened to me was the lender asked me to sign off on the deed because I had clouded the title with my joint venture agreement. Jess.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm trying to look through the comments while you were explaining that, and it's so true. Somebody can really just snatch the deal out from under you without
Yeah,
that being recorded. And
yeah,
your partner could try and sell the property without telling you. But when you record
yeah,
that, it's
yeah.
basically putting a stopgap there.
Stop.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you can't get out of this deal. That's worth the price of the class today, class. You can't get out of once you sign this thing, but you should record it. So
Right. Absolutely. And the recording fees are very nominal
yeah, on a
for
partnership.
a doc, like, a few bucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
So, yeah, all these people are talking about, like, yeah, is, your email address getting hacked, when you do business with, and especially when you're doing business with a romantic partner and things go sideways. Yeah. Having a document is protection. And it's true. Like somebody made a comment, like, it's prevention versus damage control.
Ah, I like that one. I like that. Let's do some Q. Jay, you still there? Did I lose you?
Me?
Okay. You want to do some
I'm here.
Q&A? You done or you
Yeah.
still going?
Q&A. I'm just reading through the comments to see if I should respond to anything directly, but let's see
Oh, okay.
some questions.
Facebook. Oh, you were already reading. Okay. Yeah, if you got
Yeah.
something, I'm going to start from the top. I just didn't. SJ wants to know, can you cash out refinance on a subject to? You talking about a subject to? We're doing, I guess it's, come on, guys.
Let's save that one for next Friday.
Yeah, can you refinance a subject to? I know that one. SJ, You can send me an email, but sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. We'll talk about that. What mailing service do I use? Click to mail, class. Click to mail.
Um,
Go ahead.
so one of the questions from ABZer was, do we use the JV when you're mentoring somebody? And I would say if you're exchanging profit, like if you're actually giving them a percentage of the profit on the deal for their mentorship, then yes, I would. If you're just paying a fee for somebody to coach you, then no. The
Yeah.
JV agreement would be used if you're doing a property deal
Yeah.
and maybe somebody's just offering you that mentorship. You want to make sure you're still documenting how much of the pie do they get when it's all said and done.
Oh man, Daniel got a tornado down there. Off the grid with the kid. He's saying that his partner did sell the property. Did you see that one, Jeff? And my
Um,
business partner and I split ways. He quickly
yes.
stole the property, transferred the deed into his own LLC, and then
Hmm.
sold the property. I promise you
Right.
that can't happen with this.
And if you record this agreement, that can happen.
There you go. I mean, yeah, you got to record it.
Right.
I had to sign. I actually had to sign on the new. We refinanced it. I had to sign on the loan, but it said
Hmm.
it was Chris Haskins, comma, not personally liable.
Okay.
Daniel, you okay down there? You got a tornado right now. Wow.
Um, so this is a great question by T. Tunstall. What
Go
if
ahead.
there's a loss instead of a profit?
Good question. You got that on here.
Yeah.
That
So I'm going to go back to
profit and loss number four, number
yeah.
five.
Now, listen, we wrote this document up
That's
with the
number five.
assumption that it's going to be profit,
We did,
but that's a fair question.
we put
If
that in
there's
there. Profit and loss.
yeah, right. If there's a loss, you're just basically, I mean, we put percent of the gain, but it really should be profit or loss. How are you going to each report that as the loss for your taxes? So how much of the percentage of the loss do you each get to report? And honestly, I'm sure the same as whatever you agree the percentage of gain should be.
Yep.
But yeah, so I mean, paragraph 5 says profit or loss, and the document says percent of the gain. But of
Yep.
course, it could be percent. You can, percent of the losses. We hope you're not losing money on these deals, but
Would Jessica, let's say they did have, would someone, an attorney or a judge, look at this and say that gain would be reasonable to say loss if there was a problem? But
yeah,
to
yeah, because
okay,
the title to that paragraph is profit or loss.
nice.
But like I said, this is a Word document that they're buying, so they can go in and with their particular JV partners specify if there's a loss on this deal, who gets to
Gotcha.
report what. And honestly, some people need that tax loss more than others. And if
Mm,
you're going to do business repeatedly with somebody, you may have an understanding with them that because of the tax bracket they're in, they're going to get to the benefit of all the loss on this deal, like
mm,
especially if they put up all the money.
gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
yeah, you can amend that, agreement however it is necessary for your particular deal. And that
Nice.
was a good question. Um,
Daniel, thank you for your love offering off the grid. Thank you. Thank you for your love offering. Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead, Jay.
do you see any questions? I'm
Well,
seeing mostly
somebody off the
comments.
grid, yeah, I'm going through a deal. Everything you're talking about right now, off the grid with the kid, is going through another partnership, another joint venture. You got to get, you better have some paperwork. Fraud, yeah.
Off the grid reports a forged document situation, and that was absolutely part of this deposition I just did.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, absolutely. The one party forged my client's signature on a bunch of documents. And so, if somebody has forged your name, you can report it to law enforcement.
That's a crime?
And it's a crime to forge somebody's signature. And they'll ask you to fill out a sworn statement and conduct an investigation.
Mm.
So, I mean, we talk about civil litigation, breach of contract stuff in this space, but there's always the criminal side of it. If somebody's actually stealing money from you, forging your signature, stealing your identity, those are all things that can be reported to law enforcement for criminal investigation.
Criminal side, nice.
And you can get restitution in the criminal court, as a possibility other than having to do the breach of contract route in civil court.
Wow. Class, if you're just joining us, I don't know who would be, but if you are, I'm hanging out with attorney Jessica Segal. We're birthing our joint venture agreement to the world, and you can download it at the link below, and you can ask questions right now today. There will not be a replay unless you order that along with your document. This video is coming down. Abdullah, Chris, how do you avoid identifying yourself for your business? Is it the same as a land trust? Yes, we use trusts. We don't put our business or our name on anything, my friend. I think that's it, Jay. Chris Monroe, thank you, brother. Thank you once again. Thank you for your love offering, my friend. Thank you.
Oh, okay, yeah. This has been great, and I'm always happy to answer questions and be a resource for people. I sometimes it takes me a few days to get back to people, but I always return all emails and all phone calls.
Yeah, it takes time. You busy. You out there trying to make some. I would be nervous to try to hire you per hour. What do you charge an hour, by the way? What would somebody pay to do something like this?
Right. So, I mean, I'm very transparent. My rate is $300 an hour. And mind you, I'm in New York, so maybe it's different in other parts of the country, but I'm actually, a middle of the road. In New York, the average attorney is going to charge between $250 and $500 an hour, depending on where in New York. New York City obviously is more expensive.
Yeah.
I'm in the Hudson Valley, and so the average rate, most lawyers, about $300 an hour.
Yeah.
And think about how quickly that adds up. Most attorneys are going to ask you for a $10,000 retainer to bill off of before they even agree to work on your case, because that money goes quick.
And that's even if they agree to do it, right? And then after that, you got to get them back on the phone after you pay them.
Yeah.
I mean,
right. And so that's really important. As a side note, customer service is really important. And there's a lot of attorneys out there. And so I always tell real estate investors, do not pick a lawyer who I call them an open door lawyer. They'll take anything that comes through the door. Find an attorney who really understands the real estate investment business and the industry specifically as it relates to the legal issues for real estate investors, because it does make a difference. You want somebody who understands the law specific to real estate and contracts.
Nice. And you are the master, the baddest attorney on the internet, Jay Segal. All right, class, I'll leave this video up. I'll leave this video up for
a little. Thanks for including me on this adventure. I appreciate it.
What'd you say, Jay?
I said, thanks for including me in this adventure of yours.
It's something, and it turned out very well.
It did. It did. I hope everybody has a great weekend.
All right, I'm gonna finish up, and I'm gonna leave the link up. You gone, Jay?
I'm hanging around whenever you're done.
Well, let me see. No more questions. Glad I purchased it. Yeah, I wanted to just let everybody know. I'm gonna leave it up for maybe another hour or two. If anybody wants to download it, make sure you subscribe to my channel, class. Like the content, put the thumbs up, and please comment in the section. We need the comments, or what else you think should be included in your joint ventures, or what do you have in your joint venture agreements? Maybe give us some good ideas to add to ours. Okay, I think.
Sure.
Hey, Larry.
I was just going to say, Dr. Atkins is on, and I know he's looking for a real estate attorney in Florida, which I don't have access to, but if you or anybody in the group knows, Dr. Atkins is ready to do some deals. He needs a good lawyer in Florida.
Oh, that's right. Yep. Make sure. Yeah, you can just comment. Just put it in the. If you can help Larry, Dr. Larry, just put it in the comments of who you recommend. And we've got a couple people down there too that I can recommend for you. I don't have them on the top of my head, Larry. Okay. Thanks, Jay.
All right. Take care, everybody.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.